Here we go with round 1 of Zendikar World Wake. We won the die roll, are going to play first. We're actually missing lands, which is pretty bad with Walking Atlas, but I think I'm still going to keep this. We are playing 19 lands and we have a Pilgrim's Eye in hand. I think that's a pretty good hand. Even though I would like to see more lands in our opener. So if we draw a land, then we actually have 4. That should be fine. There's a 2/1 Intimidate creature in this format, which it only gets Intimidate when you drop a land, so that's actually where this kind of deck is very good against. I think we can get a second island here because we drew the 3rd forest for Terra Stomper, so that shouldn't be a problem. Now I'm going to pass the turn here, and then put a land to play at end of turn, which does give me the potential to drop a turn 4 Terra Stomper. And if not, we still have the Sea Stalkers. That's unfortunate, but it's still a very good card to draw. So we don't have to drop the land because we have the Walking Atlas in play, so we aren't going to be constrained on our land drops. The question is if we actually want to block here. I feel like we could, but we don't have to. The Sea Stalkers are very good on their own, but if our opponent has a removal spell, we actually want him to use it on the Sea Stalkers, so that our Terra Stomper is safe, basically. So let's see if that surprised him or not. I mean, he probably wasn't expecting a combo trick from a tapped out opponent, so. And there is a Burst Lightning, which we are fine with. It's not great, but it's also not the end of the world to lose the Sea Stalkers to a Burst Lightning, which actually would have done the same if he had kicked it. We could fetch for a land here. We don't have that many landfall cards, but I think keeping it for the life gain or not mystical teachings, the card that lets us draw 3 is probably better. So now the main question is if our Stomper survives. And that's an aura. When it becomes tapped, it gets destroyed. I think we are fine with that. We can keep an 8/8 blocker around. And here we can keep the Atlas untapped to have Verdant Catacombs available. So if he has a 4 damage spell, then we just Atlas and save it. Oh, that's unfortunate. And then we are almost threatening lethal basically, simply because we could attack with this at any moment. So the Baloth is a 6/6. If I drop the island, yeah, I think this is. Oh no, we can't delay it with this Stomper. I misread that, so that's not an option. But we do want to deal quite a lot of damage with the Baloth, and getting that Catacombs into play doesn't sound like the worst idea. Does give our opponents some information, but not too much. I'm just going to take this pretty slow with regard to landfall. He could have another spell to just deal with the Baloth, but okay. So now he's destroying artifacts. That's quite a bit better. Well, it's good that it's that late in the game, let's put it that way. And he's going to have to chump block the Baloth pretty soon. So I guess we just drop the island. He's forced to block the Baloth because of Catacombs. And we can decide to draw 3 cards. So we actually drew Nissa's Chosen, which is why I kept up the Forest. Now, that would cost us the activation on the Catacombs, and I'm not sure if the Chosen is worth doing that. I think I'd rather keep it around. We aren't in any hurry to win this game. That's another landfall creature that deals 1 to players when lands come into play. It looks like we're getting dealt some more damage here, but oh, not even that. Okay. So if our opponent is hoping that we are going to stop drawing lands, then he's out of luck because we are playing 19 lands. He can't even block with all his creatures because of Catacombs, so it's another chump block for him. And a Vastwood Gorger for us. Don't know what the black is for, but it looks like he's trying to play an aggressive red strategy. He has short cutters, but 1 toughness creatures aren't really a problem. Burst Lightning we now know. And then there's the Scrapper, which is kind of good against us, but we should be able to deal with that. He also hasn't seen the 2 Glade Hearts that should provide pretty amazing. Now, considering our blue cards, we don't need Grasp. We don't need Island Walk, and we might want the Wind Zendikon, but I'm hesitant to put in any blue cards because our mana is just going to be worse as a result. Lethargy Trap and Skyborn Drag are actually quite playable against him, but I think they are worse than the cards we have. We could drop the Terastodon, but Terastodon is just so much fun. So I assume that our opponent is going to go first here. Our opponent is keeping, and I don't really like this hand too much, but considering what Zendikar is all about, Zendikar Limiter is all about, turn 2 Nissa's Chosen, turn 3 Glazing Gladeheart, or even turn 3 Recluse, turn 4 Gladeheart, gain some life, is actually pretty amazing, so I'm never going to mulligan that, of course. We do have the blue spells, which we can't cast yet, but there's the island. Now, we could go Growth here, but if we draw a Walking Atlas, it's a combat trick, and we have more than enough lands, so there is no reason to run it out early. Our opponent has also shown us the Ruin Blaster, so having not playing the non-basic land has an additional advantage. So I believe our plan is to probably drop the Recluse before we drop the Gladeheart, to ensure that we at least gain 2 life off it. And that could be very good with the Recluse, though. Now, given that our opponent hasn't played anything and we can gain 2 life always, I think we are under no pressure whatsoever, so he would have to kill the Gladeheart end of turn and then drop something threatening, and even then we are looking pretty good, but I'm not that interested in racing with him, so I think I'm actually going to just not play either of my cards. It might seem wrong, and it could very well be, but I feel like I'm winning this game because I'm on the defensive rather than trying to outrace him. Our late game should be so good. Here we have the Atlas I was talking about, so we definitely want to keep the Sea Cliff around. And the growth is still a combo trick, so this is a very, very interesting turn. We do want to gain as much life with the Glade Heart as possible. We also want to reach 6 mana and then drop the Sea Cliff to deal with any creature. So if we drop a land now, we get up to 6 next turn for the Recluse with Kicker, but we won't have the Sea Cliff. So what we could do is actually not drop a land at all, but only the Atlas. And that would give us the option to Glade Heart the following turn, drop a land regularly, and then have the Atlas up for both of these tricks. Let's try that. It's possible that our Atlas gets shot down, but it's actually very confusing for the opponent. If you don't drop a land, then he might just think that you don't have any lands, which means that the Atlas is one of the worst creatures possible. So who would waste a removal spell on Walking Atlas? Seriously. I still believe that we probably could have gotten these 9th and 10th rather than 1st and 2nd or whatever we picked them up. I think we picked them 1st and 3rd. But you can already see how important the Atlas is for the strategy we are employing. And this looks like we can just block with the Chosen or just let it through. I think I'm going to let it through. We have the Glade Heart to gain back some life, even though the Ravager does deal us some damage. If our opponent draws too many lands, he's at a severe disadvantage. If we draw too many lands, well, there isn't such a thing as drawing too many lands with this kind of deck. So now we can start gaining life. We are just going to hold back with the Chosen as well so that the Ravager can't attack us. No attacks, no spells. So if we Atlas now, then he might respond. So I'm just going to not do that. There was no reason to play the Recluse because he hasn't shown us any targets. So what we can do is drop the Sea Stalkers and another land. Would also be nice to get the Pilgrim's Eye into play, I guess. But the Sea Stalkers are somewhat stronger, so going to attack with the Chosen. Probably should have played my Forest first because I knew I was going to do that. It's possible that we are running into some kind of mass removal spell here. But first of all, I don't really know all the spells anymore. And second of all, his black-red aggressive deck doesn't really profit so much from playing mass removal, so would have to be something pretty good. We're also quite safe from Mind Sludge at this point, and it looks like he's flooding it. It's possible that he has some insane late game stuff, but we'll see about that. We certainly do have some insane late game stuff, so not too worried here. I'm not going to run out the larva right now. I think that we are so far ahead that there's really no reason to risk anything. Still no spells at all. This is a very, very weird game. Especially the black-red aggressive decks don't usually just play lands. Something you have to know about this format, though, is that even the aggressive decks usually played 18 lands because of landfall, and the tempo being so important that you could never afford to not hit your lands, which is kind of natural if lands power up your creatures and make blocking more difficult. And then also quite a lot of evasive creatures in this format. The deck I'm drafting is basically something that's not normal. Okay, so he does have something nice here. X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So every creature is dealt 6 damage, which means they all die. Now, we could gain another 2, but we know that Soaring Seacliff is going to be very nice with Oran Reef Recluse. We can basically kill his next creature if we want. And Turn Timber Grove, while not being amazing, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This attacks for 7, 8. Yeah, so we probably aren't attacking for lethal anytime soon. But I'm still going to keep these lands in hand. I think that's much better than going up to 18. Yeah, just a random 3/2 isn't the end of the world here. Do an island, not a good card per se, but so be it. Just going to keep all my lands in hand. Didn't draw a forest, so that doesn't really matter. And hopefully the larva survives. If he has another burn spell, then it's kind of bad. That lets us discard cards. And now it has haste. Okay. Good thing we kept that island in hand, I guess. So planning to discard the island, and then we Seacliff, Recluse the nulls. And if he can't deal with the larva, then we just kill him. We're also reasonably out of burn range at this point. So he's going down to 3, sadly not 2, otherwise a Recluse and Turn Timber Grove would have been lethal as well. And that's gone. And now he really has to have something. We don't really want to block here, but the question is if the Recluse is going to achieve all that much, given that he's on 3. But if he has to chump block Timomo, he might just be out of options. So overall, we might have wanted to gain another 2 life with the Glade Heart just to be safe from his black-red deck. But other than that, I mean, he had a chain reaction. Not too sure if we could have played around that. Well, it was kind of suspicious, but we also didn't really know what was happening. When this creature is dealt damage, it's destroyed. Okay. And he has a huge Death Shadow, which is a 10/10. And if we kill him, it's going to be even stronger. So we actually had a nice draw here. 4, yeah, that's not lethal, sadly. But we can just drop the Sea Stalkers, tap something during his turn. He's might attack us, but then we just kill him once we untap. I think that's our best shot. We also have this as a 7/7. We could make it an 8/8, but that doesn't make much sense against Death Shadow. So if he doesn't have a card like Fling or whatever, he should be fine. And given that he cast Mire Blight on Timomo Larva, it's likely that he isn't holding Burst Lightning as well. although you can never be sure about that, of course. That was a pretty good draw, otherwise that Death Shadow might have become a problem. So let's see if he has anything against that. So it just deals 5 to the Sea Stalkers, which means that we can tap the Shadow this turn. He's almost dead, but not quite, so he still needs something here. He isn't kicking the Bushwhacker, of course. No, he just trades Bushwhacker for the Larva, of course. That isn't a good trade for us. We could make the Recluse a 2/4 and force him to... Well, not force him to block, but he's probably going to block it. But then he just blocks with both. We haven't really achieved anything. The problem is that we are going to have to chump block Death's Shadow next turn. So that's really unfortunate. No, we do have more than enough land, so I think we can just drop the forest here. If we attack with the Larva... Oh, it doesn't really make much sense here either way. So the Recluse, making the Recluse a 2/4 is... He's just going to double block. I mean, if he blocks only with the Rough Rider, that would be insane. So he could only chump with the Bushwhacker, but then you can also do the double block. You still have the 10/10, and there isn't much reason not to do so. The problem is, because we are on 9 and could actually be on a higher life total if we had gained another 2 life, means that we are forced to chump block here next turn. But let's see if we can draw something to get us out of that. I thought that the Sea Stalkers were the card we wanted to draw, but apparently they weren't enough. But we can still draw. No, we've lost both of them. Okay, not too sure. We can still draw. We also used up that Soaring Sea Cliff. Otherwise, making Timbermaw Larva flying is also a very good way to win. So I think we chump block with that. And we drew an 8/8. So who knows? We might just be in the game. I think that we chump block Death Shadow and then he can't survive the trample damage, which means that he might have to stay back with Death Shadow, and then we have kind of a standoff. And then we theoretically should be favored. I'm not going to double block because then I don't have any creatures, so I'm just going to try to win with the Stomper. And if that doesn't work, then so be it. Okay, so we have that situation again. And now we are pretty dead, I have to say. Bring of Disaster being a pretty good sideboard card against us. Nature's Claim would be insane here. If we destroyed this, he would go up to 7. This would only be a 6/6, and we kill it. But we don't have that. So I think this game goes to him because of Chain Reaction mostly, and Death Shadow also helping out quite a bit. Might have been a point where we could have played better, but I think overall, given that we didn't know that he has Chain Reaction, was we didn't play this awfully at all. There's also still some cards we can draw, not if he has something really good here. Well, now we take 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I think we need to draw Terastodon. Okay, I thought he wasn't attacking with Death Shadow. That would have been kind of awkward for him. So Terastodon maybe one time. No, just another 2/2. Okay, he wins this one. And we can see if we can board in something else, but I don't think there is much to be boarded in. We are playing a lot of creatures, so now we just have to actively play around his mass removal, and then we should be fine. Paralyzing Grasp is also better now that we've seen both an Aura and his Death Shadow, and we can't really lose otherwise, so I think we should definitely put that in. Maybe for the Ether Figment. I kind of like the Recluses, even though they aren't too amazing. 3 mana 1/3 is actually fine, and we've seen that we can give one of his creatures flying for great effect. Basically, we could cut one, but the question is if it's really better than the Figment. I don't think so. I think the Figment is probably the weakest link, especially when we are boarding in a blue card. It's probably good to take out a blue card as well. Yeah, I think that this deck should be favored in this matchup, and hope that we can win the next game. So we have an Atlas, which probably means that we are just going to keep. We have a turn 3 Sea Stalkers as well, not going to mulligan. And once again, we are going to keep the Seacliff in hand for whatever is going to happen. Our deck is kind of weak against mass removal because we don't have an easy way of controlling the board. We have to do it with creatures, basically. And that means that we have to commit a certain amount of creatures to the board. Drawing quite a lot of islands here. We're only playing 5. We do need a 3rd green at some point, so if we now draw Leatherback Bailout, that would be very unfortunate. But now we basically have a lot of life draws. We would also, of course, we would love some of the blue card draw spells, Treasure Hunt and the 5 mana instant. But we should be fine either way. Now, this is another Glade Heart decision point, where we could just decide to run out the Glade Heart and then put in the Catacombs with the help of Walking Atlas. Then we drop the Sea Stalkers later. That way we gain the most amount of life, and as we've seen, that should be very valuable against him. One problem is going to be how to beat a potential turn 4 chain reaction if he doesn't drop a creature now. Then we almost have to start playing around it by not dropping the Sea Stalkers, which is certainly not what we want to be doing. So he's actually not doing anything, and that probably means that we have to respect that and not do anything either. Not planning to run into chain reaction a second time if I don't have to. I'm still confused about the card in his deck. I suppose you just play it if you have it, but it seems kind of weak in his deck overall. Just a regular 3/2. So at this point, I'm actually willing to trade my Gladeheart for either his Rough Rider or the Quicksand, because I don't want too many creatures to be in play at a given time. So I think we want to attack with the Gladeheart here. And if he blocks, I might fetch with the Catacombs because I want to drop the Baloth anyway. Oh, I guess he has Quicksand as well, so we won't really know what he's up to. There's also some reasoning behind keeping that Catacombs around. But this is quite nice. Here we are trading these. We can get a forest, which means that we need to draw a natural forest for the Stomper. But that's fine because we have the Baloth then. And we can't drop the Baloth otherwise. The alternative is to just go Sea Stalkers, Sea Cliff, but I like that worse. Also we're gaining some more life and so on. That's a nice card to draw there. Kind of like the Cage Trap. We can just attack with the Baloth. As long as we don't drop another creature, he isn't going to be killing the Baloth with the mass, with the chain reaction. So what's he doing here? +3/+0 and lifelink. Yeah, I guess that's fine. You got it. So we could try to trap something with the Cage Trap, but I just want this in play and continue beating down. We do need to be a bit careful now. If we are committing a third creature to the board, then chain reaction is good again. So we probably just want to attack with the beast and see what happens. Which might have been a reason to play this differently. I'm not too sure. I think what we can do now that we've drawn the forest is just drop the forest for the 8/8, and then he's going to have one of very few answers to it, and chain reaction isn't going to be enough to deal with the 8/8 on its own. So I think we can do that. Also, our Walking Atlas has basically done its job, so it's not as important now to keep around. Let's hope he doesn't have the 4-mana aura for Terra Stomper again. That would be really unfortunate. And we might actually be forced to suicide our Terra Stomper to weaken a potential chain reaction, but that might also be overdoing it. That isn't looking too threatening. I mean, we are on 23 against his true red creatures. And if he wants to maximize chain reaction, he isn't going to be able to just trade his creatures, but he also can't take too much damage, so that isn't looking too bad. He might want to double block the beast here, but I think we are fine with that. So starting now, his Death Shadow is a 1/1, which isn't irrelevant. And we kind of want the Sea Stalkers out there. If he drops Chain Reaction, then we lose Sea Stalkers and Atlas. So what we could do is just drop all of our creatures and threaten lethal, but then we lose both of them to Chain Reaction, but we hit him down to 4 with the Terra Stomper. The alternative would be to hold them back further, longer. I think we actually go for it here. If he has Chain Reaction and we keep our Terra Stomper around and bring him down to 4, that can't be too bad. Of course, he does have some ways to deal with the Stomper, but I think that's a risk worth taking. And he concedes. Yeah, it was a close one actually, because there is some combination of cards he can have to actually get us here. And we are prone to flooding, but we also have some insane cards with the lands we draw. So it's a very volatile deck we are playing, but I'm happy that worked out. And see you in round 2.